The scale of the system increases as p is less than p plus I drives exponential growth. Basically, we're on a perpetual motion machine toward bigness. The height of the pyramid gets higher as the pyramid itself grows. And this system funds both the corporate world and government, which is why both of those realms keep getting bigger. We keep going towards big business and big government. It never reverses itself. And the bigger it gets, the more detached it is from individuals and local community. So Democrats and Republicans, left and right both, may seem to be in opposition, but actually they work together to drive bigness, because the system we're all caught in is designed to do so. And after growing for 70 years, most of us are now stuck in a system so massive, so beyond our daily existence that we can't comprehend how it works. We can't comprehend why it works, or if it works, or when it might stop working. That's a serious problem. We are also helplessly dependent on mega institutions to provide our survival needs. In other words, we've outsourced our survival. We're in total dependency mode. That's quite a leap of faith. We've left it up to this Ivy Leaguer, who luckily appears to be praying in this picture, but system's so big we can't tell he's just making the problem worse. Then we've got another Ivy Leaguer in charge who has spent his life working for global banking interests and thought he didn't have to pay U.S. taxes. You trust him with your survival? Should we really have a system that makes hundreds of millions of people dependent on a few Ivy Leaguers? Or before them, these Harvard guys, along with Greenspan, that rigged the system to superinflate well beyond where it should have and basically set up a much bigger problem. The scale is so big that we can't see how they set up the coming biggest disaster in history. It's going to impoverish many. But since Time magazine back then said they saved the world, yeah, sure, let's call them a savior. We have little option to believe it, because we can't tell if what they do works or not. And the system's so big we can't tell the actions of this guy, who attacks nations to transfer billions to himself, should be outlawed. But we can sure see when a neighborhood kid transfers a $3 candy bar to himself by robbing a convenience store, and boy, we want him prosecuted, while Soros gets idolized by the investor class as a brilliant man. Literally, this system's insane. Soros' attacks are legal, given the system set up by the Ivy League economists over the years, but they result in impoverishment of millions, which ends up looking like this. The same picture we've seen in endless countries around the world as the scale of the system goes global and currencies get attacked. The little people know they're being screwed. When you impoverish others, you should be prosecuted. But the strategic people that control our financial system also happen to have a lot of leverage over the legal and justice systems. And they want this to happen as they standardize each country under the Anglo monetary system, which I'll be discussing in a future lesson. But they know the scale of what they're doing is so big that they can get away with it because most people won't be able to tell what they're doing until it's too late. And beyond the simple issue of scale comprehension are the deeper issues. Like, this debt-based monetary system has grown so big that it has crowded out everything else to the point where we've lost the sense of meaning because everything has been monetized. We see this in human interactions and relationships where the famous question people ask at social events is, "So, what do you do?" Because what you do to earn bank credit is pretty much what defines you in this system. And a child's dream about her future is couched in terms of which job she's going to pick, what career she'll have. And it's still just a job no matter how well it's marketed to the bourgeois class. Even religious and spiritual aspects of life have been monetized. My last CEO, one of the big famous heroes of Silicon Valley, wrote a book about sabbatical, i.e. Sabbath, and claimed its purpose is to give you time to figure out your next entrepreneurial plan to make money. And I mean, the guy believes it. You know, like visions of future wealth is what life is all about. And he's basically a preacher as thousands of people buy the book thinking it's the answer to their prayers. It's what they've been looking for. They just rave about it and give it a thumbs up on Facebook, and I find this very disturbing. And this. Churches seem to be fine with compartmentalizing themselves to fit neatly into 1 or 2 hour Sunday routines. You know, just a tiny corner of our world otherwise dominated by the usury-based monetary and corporate system. Many people seem to view church as a helpful weekly recharge to get ready for their real purpose in life, which is to serve the corporate system in return for bank credit. You know, pastors and therapists might even see part of their jobs as counseling people how to be happier and more successful as corporate servants. In fact, all the patriarchs of psychology said success in a job is a component of psychological health. Wow. Co opting a field like that shows the power of this system. Something must be wrong with you if you aren't happy being a corporate servant. And massive scale also causes a loss of community, as small towns have largely been gutted and lost their own sense of meaning while big corporate cities have taken over. Now, look, I'm a fan of cities, but we need to be aware that this is a symptom of scale growth, and we need to ask important questions like, what do we do about it? How do we manage it? Is it a good thing? And as a side note, it's no accident the Empire State Building here is a pyramid. And it's no accident New York is called the Empire State. It's the center of this empire, for now. We'll see later that it's shifting to Asia. Now, in big cities, instead of spending our time in something natural like this, we spend our time in one of these. And that's an odd world. It's the modern hamster wheel. It can cause people to be like this. And the movie Falling Down was an extreme example, but he basically suffered from a lack of agency. By that I mean his inability to control his life and make his own mark on the world. He was in touch with this issue of scale, and how he was hostage to something he could do nothing about, and hostage to mega institutions way above his pay grade. And this issue of scale affects all of us in negative ways, whether we're conscious of it or not. We see the issue of scale in the disappearance of local and family farming, and the rise of massive agribusiness corporations that have replaced it. You can just feel the difference in these pictures, can't you? We've seen the difference in the media, as mega corporate machines have replaced the local newspaper. Even the remaining local newspapers use a lot of space to report the national news. That's because local media has lost a lot of its own meaning because towns themselves have lost a lot of their meaning. They have little purpose in the global economy. And we've seen this a lot in Hollywood. In the latest Star Trek, for example, the young James Kirk was portrayed as a drunk loser when he was in his hometown. He was called a, quote, townie, like making fun of people who want to stay connected to roots, to local community and friends and family. But then he was portrayed as a hero once he put on a weird uniform and started killing people for a living. We've seen that for decades in Hollywood. The message never seems to stop. But instead of listening to Hollywood, I hope the voice of someone like Wendell Berry starts being heard. Like him, I don't see how life continues, at least in a sane way, as local communities die. Well, that was a lot on scale, but it's a really important issue, and it's another key flaw of neoclassical economics. The profession ignores it. Completely. They have a Pavlovian resistance to seeing growth as anything other than glorious. They literally think it's where salvation is found. And since they're the high priests, their natural bias is to keep reinforcing such fantasies, because there's nothing like a little grandiosity to feed the ego of an academic overachiever. And they have no way of measuring negative impact on the human heart and local community. And that's really unfortunate because the scale of the system has been destroying them for decades.